Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Preet Bharara, and I'm the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. The indictment that we unseal today describes a sweeping and cynical fraud. It charges 14 people with an almost decade-long scheme that ripped off banks, welfare programs, and taxpayers, and a 15th person who committed welfare fraud. The scheme ranged from 2004 to 2014, as alleged, from Brooklyn to Harlem to Orange County. The individuals charged today alternately played the part of prince or pauper, depending on which scam was being perpetrated. First, as alleged, many of the defendants claimed poverty to defraud federal, state, and local government, including Medicaid, the food stamp program, and other welfare programs. They paid little or no income taxes, all to divert money to their own pockets, money for government assistance that should have gone to those who were truly in need and who were actually deserving of welfare. At the very same time, many defendants claimed considerable wealth to qualify for high-dollar mortgages. This enabled them to defraud banks both on their way into loans as well as on their way out of paying them back, resulting in millions of dollars of losses to those banks. So this was fraud really coming and going. All told, according to the indictment, the defendants' scheme involved 25 high-dollar value loans from which they fraudulently obtained more than $20 million. But as alleged, regardless of whether they were posing as rich men or poor men, they were always con men, claiming wealth when it suited them and then claiming poverty when that suited them better. If you look to the first chart to my right, there are some examples of this. As you'll see with respect to one couple, on the one hand, they claimed that they had an income of $250,000 per month in order to qualify for mortgages in excess of $1 million, and at the very same time, claimed poverty by saying they only had $180 a month in income. Second example, with respect to this couple, who claimed a $12,000 a month income to qualify for a high-dollar value mortgage, and once again, on the other side, to get welfare benefits, claimed they were homeless. And the third example, also contained in the indictment with respect to Samuel Rubin, the defendant charged, claimed a net worth of over $10 million to get loans of over $7 million, and otherwise, on the other side of the alleged fraud, claimed $0 in financial resources in order to receive welfare. Now, as also described in the indictment, these individuals then used the money from the loans to enrich themselves and their families, paying personal credit card bills, personal mortgages, and pursuing other real estate development projects. As further alleged, these defendants lied about their income, their assets, and their employment status. They lied about being homeless, lied about their identities, and lied about who owned which properties and companies in Orange County, Harlem, Brooklyn, and elsewhere, all based on what would benefit them most financially. They allegedly lied about financial troubles they had incurred in order to escape their mortgage obligations. They lied again and again in order to personally enrich themselves and their families with a blatant disregard of who would be left holding the bag. In fact, it's hard to find any examples of when they told the truth, as the indictment makes clear. Now let me provide just a moment of more detail on the elaborate mortgage fraud scheme described in the indictment. One of the co-conspirators would obtain ownership of a property, or at least a claim to ownership of a property. The properties were residential, including single apartments, single homes, and apartment complexes. Sometimes the claim of ownership would arise from a real sale of the property to one of the defendants. In other instances, the claim arose from a transfer of the property from one co-conspirator to another at little or no reported cost. If you look at the second chart to my right, you'll see laid out essentially how the mortgage fraud scheme worked. As I mentioned, there would be lies about assets and the value of their income, which would be backed up by often bogus verifications and fake records to support their claims of high income to qualify for the high-dollar mortgages. They would obtain a loan based on those fraudulent pretenses, distribute the cash obtained from the loan to various co-conspirators, and then pretty quickly in the scheme, they would then default on the loan, not paying them, and then in that regard, to get more money in connection with the
they would either succeed in getting loan forgiveness, so that their obligations under the loan was reduced, or they would engage in a fraudulent short sale to get rid of the property. So that was essentially the mortgage fraud
scheme. In making, by the way, the request for forgiveness, the defendants allegedly would essentially claim poverty again, having done that in connection with the other schemes. When the request included a proposed short sale, the borrower would claim that he had luckily found a potential buyer of the property willing to purchase it at a substantial discount, which in fact was itself, as we allege, a sham transaction. As you can see from the description of the case in the indictment, if you take a moment to read it, the scope of the scheme described is breathtaking in its brazenness. People claimed to be millionaires when it suited them, and they claimed to be homeless when it suited them better. The defendants pretended to have multiple properties and assets when they pretended otherwise to be destitute. Now, as we stand here today, their alleged double dealing will be stopped, and they will have to submit to the truth-seeking process of the criminal justice system. Now, I want to thank many of our partners who were involved in this investigation and this prosecution. Here from the FBI are George Venizelos, the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI in New York, Special Agent in charge Richard Frankel, and Assistant Special Agent in charge George Kazami. Also, I want to thank and welcome here the Orange County Sheriff's Office, represented by Sheriff Carl Du Bois. I would like to thank the Orange County Department of Social Services Special Investigations Unit, the New York City Human Resources Administration, and the IRS, whose efforts also made this case possible, and especially Sergeant Meredith McGovern, Investigator Marcello Lodato, FBI Special Agents Eugene Hagan and John Farrell, and Supervisory Special Agent Jermica Fomby. And finally, as always, I want to thank and acknowledge the dedicated career prosecutors in my office who made this case possible. They are Assistant U.S. Attorneys Ben Ali, Catherine Martin, and Michael Maiman, supervised by their chiefs in our White Plains office, Assistant U.S. Attorneys Mimi Roca, Todd Blanche, and Perry Carbone. And now I turn the podium over to my friend and partner in this and so many cases, FBI Assistant Director George Venizelos.
Thank you, Preet. Good afternoon. I just have a short statement. Preet does a great job of getting to the details. The charges announced today describe a scheme in which the defendants and their families fraudulently obtained more than $20 million in mortgages, home equity lines of credit, and other loans, while simultaneously defrauding the government by unjustly obtaining social service benefits, including Medicaid and food stamps. In a clear case of double dipping, the defendants convinced lenders of their affluence while accepting aid from programs established for the benefit of those less fortunate, ultimately causing the local community to incur a significant financial loss. Members of the Rubin organization intentionally misrepresented to lenders their income, assets, and employment, among other things, claiming ownership of properties in order to obtain secure loans they seldom intended to repay. After making good on a few payments, the defendants allowed the loans to default or go into foreclosure, citing an unfortunate financial downfall. One even suggested she had been hit by a storm of financial ruin, when she was, in fact, feeling its fury. Loan proceeds were invested in real estate development projects, used to repay personal debts, and spent on other means of enrichment. Lenders are not the only ones affected by this type of behavior. By way of increased interest rates, the cost is transferred to ordinary citizens seeking personal loans. And while many social benefits are subject to fraud around the country, estimates of fraudulent billings to healthcare programs such as Medicaid are in the tens of billions. Perpetrators who poke holes in the government safety net and exploit gaps in the mortgage and banking sectors will be made to face the errors of their ways. This investigation has been a true team effort. We owe a debt of gratitude to the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Orange County Department of Social Service Special Investigations Unit, New York City Human Resources Administration, and the United States Secret Service. Thanks, as always, to our partners in this and so many investigations, U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara and Assistant U.S. Attorneys Benjamin Ali and Catherine Martin. We also received substantial assistance from the Orange County Sheriff Carl Dubois. But last not least, congratulations to Sergeant Meredith McGovern, Investigator Marcelo Lordato, FBI Special Agents Eugene Hagen and John Farrell, and Supervisory Special Agent Jamaica Fomby for their work on this complex and ongoing investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, George. And now I'm going to call to the podium the Sheriff, Sheriff Du Bois.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This case began with a routine bad check case adopted by then investigator, now Sergeant Meredith McGovern. Her tenacious spirit and attention to detail, supported by the encouragement of my office, has resulted in a lengthy, comprehensive, multi-million-dollar mortgage and public benefits fraud case, spreading across multiple jurisdictions. Investigators from my office, the FBI, and other law enforcement agencies put in a lot of time for years to produce this case. A crime of this magnitude drains resources from the banking industry that would otherwise be directed to the economic recovery of our country, state, and county that we desperately need. Importantly, the fraudulent obtaining of public benefits has a direct impact in my county, Orange County, where nearly half of a budget exceeding $700 million is dedicated to delivering services to those in need. Those that steal from public benefit funds cause a great strain to the local budget and therefore the local taxpayers. Because county government is responsible for paying half the cost of public benefits delivered, unchecked fraud can undo the underpinnings of local government and threatens all other operations of county government. Believe me, this is not the end, but merely the beginning of an effort dedicated to the vigorous and extensive review of public benefits to ensure that those in need receive the benefits that they are necessary, and those that choose to engage in fraud and other criminal behaviors face prosecution and incarceration as a result. It is difficult to properly portray the intense partnership that exists between my office, the FBI, the Justice Department, as well as other federal, state, and local agencies. This investigation is symbolic of the results that can be achieved when law enforcement and other resources are utilized to protect the taxpayers and the variability of local government to operate. I commend all those involved, especially U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, Assistant Director George Venizelos, and their staff. And you can all be assured that my office will continue to relentlessly pursue criminal behavior of this nature until the very roots of any criminal enterprise are pulled out and destroyed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. We're happy to take questions. Yeah.
The indictment says Yehuda Rubin was an organizer. Was he the leader?
I'm not going to comment on who was the leader, but obviously certain people had more culpability than others, and that'll play out in court.
How do you understand that the banks would have allowed so many people to get away with lying about their income, their assets, without checking?
Yeah, look, the investigation remains open and ongoing, as described in the indictment. There was a lot of fraud here, and there was a lot of shell game activity taking place, as described on that chart over there. There were a lot of fake documents provided, and sometimes you can see through that, and sometimes you can't. It's not a bad question, but that's all I can say about it at the time.
Is this connected to the fact that so many different people lied on their mortgage applications and created these crisis of 2007 and 8?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to connect this to the financial crisis, and I think
Was it characteristic?
the causes of the financial crisis are varied, many, and complex, and I'm not a scholar of the economy. What I'll say is,
What I'm trying to say is that during that crisis, it came out that banks were just giving away mortgages without even checking anything. You wonder how so many people could get away with all these kinds of frauds without the banks doing the due diligence.
as I said, there are a lot of things that contribute to the financial crisis. Among those things was the ability for people who shouldn't have gotten loans to get loans, and I'll leave it at that. We have a lot of other cases that are directed to the root cause of the financial crisis. Yes.
Were there other members of the family who were not involved in this, or did this take in the entire human family?
I don't know the full scope of who's related by blood, who has not been charged, but obviously there's a substantial number of people who are part of the Rubin family. Not everyone charged today is part of the same family. And as I said before, the case is ongoing.
But, I'm sorry, were there daughters or other sons who were not involved in this?
I don't know the full scope of who's related to the defendants. I can assume that there are many people who are related to some of the defendants who are not also defendants. Yeah.
Is it organized family, organized crime family, they're all working together in scams?
Organized crime family is a term of art, as you know, Jonathan, better than anyone else. What I'll say is the fraud that was committed was complex. It was fairly brazen, as alleged. It occurred over a period of time. It required a substantial amount of sophistication, and they were fairly organized. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
The sheriff mentioned starting with a bad check plan or investigation. When was that? How long did it take to put this case together? And because it got put together, was it hard to unravel, or was it something that kind of fell together once you started looking at it?
As you can tell, I can let the sheriff respond also. My understanding is that it was about a 3-year investigation. We came into it, I think, a little after. When you have the kind of allegations we have here, with false documents, with interlocking accounts, with people making representations that are false, with a lot of people involved over time and properties in different places and different banks involved, obviously that's a complex thing. It takes a while to unravel and to uncover, and that's why I think the people behind me and back there should be applauded for their work.
No, it's, oh, I'm sorry. I worked bad check cases back when I was a police officer detective in the city of Middletown, and for the most part, they were routine. Sergeant McGovern uncovered some facts that were not making sense, didn't add up. So I know she had served a couple subpoenas for some banking records, and through that diligence and investigation of those records, it led, and it was just a logical progression on from there. And I believe at some point in time, her supervisor said, we have more than we can handle, obviously, and we went to the resources of the FBI, and it took off from there.
Were they rich? Were they poor? Which one was the truth? And where were they making the money other than?
If you're asking, can we place a dollar figure on the assets and income of the various defendants charged today, we can't, in part because, as alleged, there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. There were a lot of shell games going on. Suffice it to say that in connection with our charges, that we're quite confident, as we described, that the representations made on the one side with respect to trying to get welfare benefits, Medicaid payments, food stamps, and otherwise, and on the other hand, representations that they had lots and lots of assets and lots of income, those were all false. Where precisely in between the one and the other they were at any given time is hard to say at this point.
Can you talk about the assets that are being seized as a result of this investigation? And also, residents are claiming this family is very generous to the community, giving money to charities, giving money away. Is there any charities as a result that are now could be affected because of the money that Mr. Bruno is
I'm not aware of the answer to the second part of your question. With respect to the first part of your question, if you look at the indictment, it's fairly detailed. There are a number of properties, there are a number of bank accounts that we believe are associated with the criminal activity that we are attempting to seize. Yeah.
Do you feel you've been able to completely unravel their financial dealings, and you know exactly what's going on there?
I think we know a good amount, and as I keep saying, like a broken record, the investigation is ongoing. When I say the investigation is ongoing and the case is ongoing, I refer not only to the fact that there could be other people who will be held accountable and brought to justice, but also following all the money. And as I said, it's a complicated stream of money involving lots of different people in lots of different places with lots of different properties, and we're still working on that.
Have all of these defendants been arrested?
So I think 13 of the 15 have been arrested and are in custody. 2 defendants happen not to be in New York today, and I think I can say, and are en route from Florida, and are voluntarily surrendering to this court later this afternoon.
Will all these Medicaid applications that were disposed be taken in Orange County?
No, I think in various places. Was it all in Orange County?
No, some in Brooklyn and Rockland.
Some in Brooklyn and Rockland counties also.
Is there any discussions with the social service agencies that handle Medicaid and food stamps on why this is so easy for them to, apparently easy for them to con the government to get these?
Yeah, I mean that's a better question, I think, for the sheriff and the social services organizations.
Okay.
Any time we have, but I'll say generally, you know, we stand up here a lot. We announce cases, and we bring cases that are related to fraud. And any time you have a case like that, the agencies or the financial institutions that are responsible for doling out money, whether it's in the form of loans or benefits, we expect to take a good and hard look at that, so we're not back here so quickly again. But it's not always possible when people are dedicated and clever and smart and savvy and sophisticated and experienced to always catch every fraud.
I would defer to social services. I'm not going to second guess what their personnel looks at, what they do, how they review their applications. But when they do find an issue, they will either bring it to our office or local police agency or the district attorney.
Thanks, folks. You can try one.
No, there's no new threat at this point. It's a precaution. It's a precaution we have to take, and there's no new threats as we speak now. No. We need help from the public, and I would like the media outlets to get those pictures out. There's 2 fugitives out there we're trying to find that are doing smash and grabs around the country, and we saw the chaos that was caused the other day by a jewelry store robbery, and we can't allow that to happen. We can't have people walking in malls and jewelry stores and creating havoc and stealing things. So we really need the public's help in this.
It's like 3 extra topics. There's not. Okay. Thank you, folks.
Can we get any details about the addresses of pages of the defendants?
Whatever information is available publicly about their ages and where they're from should be in the press release. Thank you.